Janmaishvarya Shruta Shivir.
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shivir.
Edamana Madapuman.
Edamana Madapuman.
Naivarhatya Vidatumbai.
Naivarhatya Vidatumbai.
Tvamakinchana Gocharam.
Tvamakinchana Gocharam. Would anyone?
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shivir.
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shivir.
Edamana Madapuman.
Edamana Madapuman.
Naivarhatya Vidatum Vai.
Naivarhatya Vidatumbai.
Amakinchana Gocharam.
Vamakinchana Gocharam.
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribhir. Edhamana Madapuman. Naivarhatya Vidatum Vai. Tvamakinchana Gocharam.
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribir.
Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribir.
Edamana Madapuman.
Edamana Madapuman.
Naivarhatya Vidatumbai.
Naivarhatya Vidatumbai.
Vamakinchana Gocharam.
Vamakinchana Gocharam. So now we'll go through the word for word responsibly. Janma, birth. Aishvarya, opulence. Shruta, education. Shribi, by the possession of beauty. Edamana, progressively increasing. Mada, intoxication. Puman, the human being. Na, never. Eva, ever. Arhati, deserves. Avidatum, to address in feeling. Vai, certainly. Tvam, you. Akinchana Gochara, one who is approached easily by the materially exhausted man. Translation. This is Queen Kunti speaking to Krishna. My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Being materially advanced means taking birth in an aristocratic family and possessing great wealth and education and attractive personal beauty. All materialistic men are mad after possessing all these material opulences, and this is known as the advancement of material civilization. But the result is that by possessing all these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up, intoxicated by such temporary possessions. Consequently, such materially puffed up persons are incapable of uttering the holy name of the Lord by addressing him feelingly, "Oh Govinda, oh Krishna." It is said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, the sinner gets rid of a quantity of sins that he is unable to commit. Such is the power of uttering the holy name of the Lord. There is not the least exaggeration in this statement. Actually, the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless person can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality. Therefore, the four principles of material advancement, namely 1, high parentage, 2, good wealth, 3, high education, and 4, attractive beauty, are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. The material covering of the pure spirit soul is an external feature as much as fever is an external feature of the unhealthy body. The general process is to decrease the degree of the fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. Sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Grossly illusioned persons are quite unfit for entrance into the kingdom of God. Om Ganatmirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaparakkamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamstra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopi Shah Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpati Vyasta Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. This is Queen Kunti speaking to Krishna. Janmeshraya Shrutashribir Edamana Mada Puman Naibrahat Yabidatum Vai Tvamakinchana Gochara. My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Yes. So, Queen Kunti refers to Krishna here as Tvama Kinchana Gochara. You are the shelter. You're the shelter of the materially exhausted. Okay. And Prabhupada emphasizes that, okay, we may chant, we may do service, but what's the quality? What's the quality of feeling? Kinchana means I've got something. I've got a possession. And a kinchana means like, I realize I don't have anything. I have no shelter. And so, because if we're not taking shelter in Krishna, we're going to be trying to take some shelter in something fallible, in something material. We're going to be trying. It's described in the second canto of the Bhagavatam. Deha Pacha Kalatradish Vatma Sanyesh Vasatsvapi Tesham Pramata Nidhanam Pashan Apina Pashati. That one in the illusion of material consciousness takes shelter of what's called fallible soldiers. My nation, my spouse, my children, my bank account, these are fallible. They will be devastated by time. They will be crushed by time. So Krishna, so I mean like to feelingly, with intensity, to feelingly take shelter in Krishna, we need to be materially exhausted. Now, material exhaustion, it's not intrinsically connected with how much material education we have or how much money is in a bank account in our name. Again, like realization means like even like we could say my bank account or my body or my family, my home, my car. But that's a way of speaking. That's a way of speaking. So as we get realization, we understand this is Krishna's mind, and he's given it to me to use in his service. This is Krishna's bank account. This is Krishna's family relation, and he's given it to me to use in his service. So exhaustion materially is a good thing spiritually, and it's not intrinsically connected with, how many vehicles or savings bonds or homes are in our name. Okay. At the same time, Queen Kunti is emphasizing that when one has these in relative abundance, then we tend to not be really urgent about spiritual life. Like, oh, Krishna consciousness. Hey, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we might be casual about it, and that's nice. I mean, it's something. But if, as the theme, a theme here is like, if we're kind of materially content, satisfied, this is nice. This is a nice life. What's all of this stuff about spiritual life, eternal life, death? No, this is a very nice life. I'm attractive and wealthy, and I have a degree. I have letters next to my name, and I have status in society. So then it's difficult to get really urgent about life, about life's ultimate goals, So, and so when we have these things, it's a danger. In fact, I'm noticing, if I look at the past 4 to 6 weeks, I'm noticing what I would call a positive spiritual trend, whether it's people I'm associating, people I talk to, that there's a sense of relief. There's some sense of relief that some sense of relief, like, oh, there's not as much pressure in this lockdown, pandemic, isolation, not as much pressure to prove myself as far as my shruti, my aishvarya, my opulence. I'll prove that I'm successful, and I'll prove that I'm a valuable person. I'll accomplish this, and I'll make myself more attractive through wealth and beauty and education, and because it's one thing, to possess Janmeshvara Shruta Shubir, and the idea is that if I can be associated with those who are very important people, then that makes me important, and I'm going to make more profit on this, and I have this project, this and that. So there's a sense of slowing. I'm sure some people are going crazy, but maybe because those in our environment tend to be inclined towards a contemplative life and self-realization and a truly introspective life. Mostly from almost everyone, whether it's clients or friends or whatever, I'm hearing like, whoa, this is nice. This is nice. I'm feeling so much less pressure and pushing to, because that's what Queen Kunti says, trying to improve myself. Because that's the thing. She's not saying that like, if one has an aristocratic birth or one has an abundant bank account, that's material. It's not material. It depends how we use it. Just like a knife in the hand of a murderer kills, a knife in the hand of a surgeon heals. So the knife is not intrinsically good or bad. What's the consciousness behind its use? So similarly with Janmeshvarya Shruta Shribir, education, material wealth, we get to cultivate the art of how of realizing how to use it spiritually. But Queen Kunti said, we're trying to improve ourselves. Like, that's my identity. That's my identity. So I'm noticing with a lot of people, like, wow, things are slowing down, and I get to actually look at what's vitally important. What's actually the true values of life? What are the actual true values of life? Rather than, because the word used here in the word for word, mada, intoxication, progressively increasing intoxication. Okay. Mada, the English word mad. The English word mad comes from the Sanskrit mada. So it could be translated as madness. Prabhupada's translating it as intoxication. Nam pramata krute vikarma. Okay. That it's an intoxication to go after these things. More profit, more wealth, more status, more adoration, more appreciation, more distinction, more fame, more, I need to be more attractive, more beauty, more material knowledge. Just like some people might collect cars, some people will collect facts and knowledge, and then I'm powerful. And so mada, it's an intoxication. That's why, one of the ground rules for one with some seriousness to progress in Krishna consciousness is no intoxication. The idea of material life already is intrinsically an intoxication. So it's not going to be helpful to add layers of intoxication on the already existent layers of intoxication. So yeah, it makes one mad. It doesn't have to make one mad. Just like there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is talking to Arjuna, because Arjuna had some doubts. Well, what if we start on this path and bhakti yoga, but we don't finish? And so Krishna is assuring Arjuna, not in a roadblocky sort of way. He's connecting with Arjuna. He says, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate. He says to Arjuna, he says, look, because earlier he says, Neha Vikramanashaste Pajavadina Vijate Swapamasya Dharmasya Trite Matra. But he says there's no loss or diminution on this path. And some will make some progress, but they didn't become pure devotees. Some will take birth in rich aristocratic families. Others who are more elevated, they might take birth in families of advanced devotees. But the idea, so we can question, why does Krishna say one will take birth in a rich aristocratic? Because Queen Kunti says this is a disadvantage. This is a disadvantage. So it's both. We need to understand some nuance. We need to apply our intelligence, make distinctions. So the idea is, because it's a fact that if we look at most people in the world, or ourselves, or whatever, to whatever extent we have these assets, and we all have these material assets to some degree, and there are some in the world who have a lot less than us and all these things, and there's some in the world who have a lot more than us. Okay, so it's all relative. But the idea is, for the most part, if we look at people who are super wealthy, they're not using it to intensely cultivate and share God consciousness. Like, same with fame or things like that. But it doesn't have to be that way, because the idea is that one takes birth in a wealthy family, then the idea is, okay, that if one is not intoxicated, if one is not maddened and agitated, then okay, well, I'm fortunate. I don't need to go out and work a job 60 hours per week and drive in traffic. I can peacefully cultivate the higher values of life. So I feel very fortunate like that. Again, it doesn't. So that's the advantage. Now we can get that advantage and then squander it. we can get that advantage and then squander it. We get material assets and we can use them and truly transform, spiritualize the world, transform matter into spirit. Anasaktasya yukta, anasaktasya vishayan, yatahamu bayunjata, nibandha Krishna samudaya yuktam vairagam yujata. That's Rupa Goswami. And he's saying that real renunciation means to know the art of how to transform matter into spirit. We say, this computer, this is material. No, it's not. If I see it as material, it just means I'm not seeing Krishna. It means I'm not seeing how to use Krishna's energy in Krishna's service. Krishna's energy in Krishna's service. Okay, so Queen Kunti is giving a caution that any material assets we have, be careful. This can be a stumbling block on our path to self-realization and our path to love of God. Doesn't have to be a stumbling block. And Krishna is giving that side of things in the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter. So Prabhupada, again, he's intoxication, madness. And so he talks about like a fever, a temperature. And Prabhupada writes, on the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. So just like if someone has a fever, and if when fevers get really high, someone becomes like mad. We can look at that English word mad, right? So, okay, so we talk about the madhouse. That's not the technical term, but like it's for crazy. Mad means crazy. And mad is also an extreme form of anger. That's not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. Jayato Vishyam Pumsa Sagaste Shubhajayate Sagat Sanjayate Kamat Kroto Bijayate. That Krishna describes to Arjuna, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. That's the kinshana. That's what Queen Kunti is talking about. When we have attachment to we identify with these things. Our value is tied up in this Janme Shvaya Shuta Shribir. And from attachment, one develops lust. Lust is like, sometimes we've defined lust. Lust is the opposite of empathy. When I'm lusty to have a particular type of gratification, I don't care what others feel or think. I just have to have it completely irrational. My lust is frustrated. I get then comes anger. Then comes anger. And then if we follow the cycle, anger leads to madness, because we become completely bewildered. Anger leads to madness. So that madness, it means craziness, insanity, and it also means really, really angry. There's a connection there. Even apart from spiritually, there's a lot of insight there into mental health and into different disorders of mental health. There's a lot of insight there. Okay, so just like so, if someone has a fever, okay, if someone has a fever, the solution is not cut off his head. No, follow me on this one. Someone has a fever. If we cut off his head, the temperature will go down. He won't have a fever anymore. Good idea, huh? Yeah, pretty good idea. Okay. Okay. Because this is the idea of the non-personalists, right? Because the fever comes from material addiction, material desire. Okay. So stop desire altogether. Commit spiritual suicide, and then there's no more suffering. Commit spiritual suicide through some philosophical concept of merge into the void or merge into the oneness, realize that you're God or something like that. Okay. It's forms of spiritual suicide. But no, Bhagavatam says no. The solution is to reduce the fever. How do we do that? We reduce the fever following Queen Kunti, this exalted lady from the Vedic age, Queen Kunti, by feelingly, with intensity, engaging in devotional service, realizing that our propensity to desire, that's part of the context of aliveness, and to try to erase it or deny it it's artificial. It's artificial. And so it's described. Etanyir vidya mananam ijatamakatobayam yoginam vipanyuritam haranamanu kirtanam. That whether one's full of desire, whether one wants to merge into the Brahman, whatever one's condition, the doubtless and fearless course of action is yoginam nirnitam haranamanu kirtanam, is this chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Akama Savakamava Mokshakamu Daradi Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yadita Pusham Puman. And so this Tivrena, that's like Abhidatu. Queen Kunti uses the word Abhidatu, addressing feeling. Tivrena means with intensity. Whether one's full of desire, or one wants to get rid of desire, or one wants devotional desire, the best course of action is Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yajita Pusham Pura. Tivrena means with intensity to engage in devotional service. And that's the recommended path, whatever our situation materially. Again, to approach Krishna with feeling, it's not like, oh, I've got these assets, I should get rid of them. That's not the bhakti process. The process is learn how to use them in Krishna's service. Then we're peaceful. Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Ate Vishata. Then we're peaceful. Just like if we look, okay, so like we have in our line personalities like Gaurkishore Das Babaji and Jagannath Das Babaji. I mean, they were externally completely renounced, nothing to their name. And of course, they're calling out feelingly to Krishna. And then there's personalities like Ramananda Roy and King Prataparudra in the time of Lord Chaitanya. King Prataparudra, he was an opulent king. Ramananda Roy was the governor, like that. And they had such deep feeling. They had such deep feeling calling out in service to Lord Chaitanya. They were desperate to give their lives to Lord Chaitanya. So, for sure, any material opulence could be intoxicating, and someone could be poverty-stricken and have none of these assets, but they're not calling out with feeling. They're just envious of that guy there with a big house, or why is this one more beautiful than me, or like that, and envious, and that envy drives them with more and more material fever. Okay. So. So the solution is to reduce the fever by transforming the quality of our desire. And this is a very, very beautiful purport when Prabhupada's following Queen Kunti and talking about it depends on the quality of feeling. That's something for all of us to look at when we're chanting, when we're speaking or hearing Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. What's the quality of my heart? And that's what Krishna is noticing. For sure, if I'm serious about devotional service, I'm going to give my 100% to do it externally in excellence. Still, it's not the externals. Maybe a week ago, I mentioned Prabhupada has a letter to one of his disciples, and the disciple was frustrated that the service hasn't gone the way he wants. And Prabhupada his mood was very, very childlike and humble. He just like said, look, Prabhupada wrote, look, I'm paraphrasing of course, but essentially wrote, look, what can any of us do? What can any of us give to Krishna anyway? What can we do? So let's just try our sincere best. Let's give our sincere best. The example given, just like the father might have an expensive art collection, fine art, top world-class art. Okay, so then his 4-year-old son comes home from kindergarten with a scrawly little picture. Daddy, this is for you. So the father does not need the scroll. The father does not need that. But that might become his most treasured piece of art. Maybe he'll put it right on the front door of his office, but because that piece of art, compared to all the others, was given with love and devotion and deep quality affection for him personally. So Krishna's looking, what's the quality of our heart? What's the quality of our heart? That's not to be used as an excuse, like, well, at least in my heart, I know I'm sincere. Okay, all right. So for me, it doesn't matter what time I get up in the morning. And it doesn't matter if I follow principles. I'm sincere in my heart. If we're sincere, then we'll show that in careful attention to the practical details of sadhana bhakti. Okay. So this verse reads, Janmeshwara Shrita Shribir Edamana Mada Kuman Naivarhat Yavidatum Vai Tama Kinchana Gochara. Queen Kunti, she's speaking, praying to Krishna, my Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Hare Krishna, thank you for your presence. Thanks for listening. And I welcome if there's any comments or questions. Ladini Shakti.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. I appreciate mostly everything that you said. And then I have a question. So, like you said that like, it's like the sincerity of the heart is like not the excuse not to do the external. And then, so like, I guess I am curious. So like, I'm struggling since I got home. And now my grandmother died. And it's not like a big thing, but also like it doesn't help the depression that I already had before. And I don't sleep well at night. And so naturally I don't get up early in the morning. So I guess like if I really was sincere, I would, but like still, like how this like physical limitations like also applies. Like, I guess like if I had a cancer, you know, and I was really sick, then perhaps I would also not be getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't be really focused on japa. Like.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. And, I appreciate your endeavor to personally apply these principles. So we're talking about a philosophical principle. That's absolutely true. Krishna is looking at the quality of the heart. Now, as you know, I gave kind of a caution about that. I gave the example of rising early. And so it's not for me to judge you about what time do you get up? That means you're not sincere. That's not my business, right? That's between you and Krishna. That's between you and Krishna. And I mean, as a general principle, we want to be real generous. As a general principle, we want to be real generous in our interpretations of others, and strict about ourselves. Strict doesn't mean that we're like harsh and we whip ourselves with shame and guilt. But strict means like, okay, so in this way, like, dear Govinda, you sleep so much, and this is just this. Yeah, you could show a lot more seriousness there. That learn a verse or chant an extra round of japa rather than napping. You can do better than that. To encourage myself, to come to a higher level. Again, it's not trying to motivate myself with shame or guilt. and with others to be generous. So the principle is Krishna is looking at the quality of our heart, and we don't want to use that as an excuse. So as far as whether I'm using it as an excuse, if I'm honest with myself, I know when I am, and I know when according to the context of my limitations, I'm giving my best. So that's that's between you and Prabhupada, and between you and Krishna, and it's kind of like your, it's important, I believe, for you to be compassionate and empathic with yourself, compassionate and empathic, while for all of us to be compassionate and empathic with others and with ourselves, while endeavoring to progress on this path of Krishna consciousness. And then, sometimes with others, it might be our service. It might be our service to point out what we see, where they might have some self-deception or hypocrisy going on. Limitations, there's the past time, it was early, maybe San Francisco or New York, and someone like came and like gave Prabhupada like thousands of dollars, and he was polite and he appreciated. And then some hippie girl came and she gave Prabhupada a flower, and he was effusive. Like, I appreciate something. He was really like effusive. So afterwards they asked Prabhupada, well, he gave you like a substantial donation and you were polite, but she gave you a flower and you were like really? And Prabhupada said, she gave everything she had. She gave everything she had. So Prabhupada was seeing the heart. Like he could give a lot more. He could give a lot more like that. So where am I holding back at the same time, like that? So, and for sure, it's our service, to care for our health, to care for our health, mental, emotional, physical. And if I'm not caring for my health, then my sadhana is negatively affected and my service is negatively affected. So that's our responsibility, right? Because I could do it. So it's like, okay, yeah, I could give more. I'm just going to sleep 3-4 hours per day, like Prabhupada, like the Goswamis. And then, then probably within a week, certainly a month, I'll get like really sick because I don't have the consciousness to sleep so little. I'll get sick, and then that'll negatively affect my service, my sadhana. So it's our responsibility to be balanced in that way.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate your response, and the hippie flower. It's like this, check, okay, how much more I could actually give, and then maybe that's all I have anyway. And so, yes, that's good. And as I guess it applies also on the okay, so Krishna appreciates the feeling, so that applies there too, right? Like on my level, how much feeling I can have anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because it's not just in terms of, well, this is how much money I have. This is how much sleep my body needs at my current level of advancement, and this is this is how much sincere emotion I have. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Ladini. I welcome any other comments, questions, or sharing.
This is Kathleen.
Kathleen.
I was struck at how biblical this verse sounded. Just like, the rich man entering the kingdom of God, how difficult that is.
Like it would be like putting a camel through the eye of a needle, something like that.
Yes, exactly, that verse. And so it even used the term like kingdom of God. And so I was just curious about that. And it felt resonant and had me reflecting on my own, material consciousness of loving secular art and, loving visual stimulation and how much I enjoy that, and like, what is that about and how can I redirect that? Yeah, it was just very thought-provoking for me, so thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah. In past years, I've made the connection of the camel through the eye of a needle verse and this verse by Queen Kunti, but I wasn't thinking of it today, so thanks for illuminating that. It's the same principle. It could be like a very appropriate verse to show the synthesis and the oneness of themes of these different spiritual traditions, because this is very much the camel through the eye of a needle verse from the Bible. And I'm assuming it was Jesus who spoke that. I don't know, and I'm sure the principle is the same. That it's not that money intrinsically is the root of all evil or pride, but the love of money and being materially educated and materially beautiful or handsome and coming from an important family, the attachment to that, the love of that, the lust for that's then that makes it impossible practically to feelingly call out, "Hey Govinda, hey Krishna." Yeah, and I appreciate your introspective mood, Kathleen. Thank you.
I have a comment
Yes, Anandi.
to Ladini's question. Because recently I read in the Bhagavatam, now I don't know where exactly, but in the second canto, about prayer to Krishna. And there was one verse which said something like, it's okay to pray for health and for service.
Yes.
And that really impacted me, that health and it's we can pray to Krishna for material things. That's okay. It's just, from what I understand, not as intelligent as or as rewarding as praying for service, because material assets will come with service anyway. But yeah, like health is usually described as something material, but there it's recommended, like, yes, it's okay, pray for health and for service.
Yeah.
And there is some, I think it's Janava from the Alachua community that showed to me a photocopy of like points Prabhupada wrote down for one of his first disciples.
Yeah.
Like what's important for her daily sadhana, and he put health first, and then.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those points. I've seen that. I hear that a lot from Naveen Krishna Prabhu. He likes to quote that from Prabhupada. Yeah, Prabhupada, he'll say 3 things in this order: health, sadhana, service. That's we might not think Prabhupada would say that. Health first. We neglect our health, then we're not doing anything else. Okay, we neglect our health, then we're completely bodily conscious. I need to take care of this, then. And then sadhana before service. Sadhana is service, but the point is, it's kind of like, I have so much service to do, I don't have time to chant my rounds. That mentality is there. I mean, I'm making it dramatic, but I've seen there's been many devotees who've done tremendous service, and they developed the mentality, I'm on the front lines battling for the Sankirtan movement. Arjuna didn't chant japa. Arjuna had a bow and arrow. He was fighting. Arjuna did. I've heard that. And then a few years later, they're completely alienated from devotional service. So, like, if we're not chanting our rounds regularly and studying Prabhupada's books, then we're probably in illusion that we're doing service. So health, sadhana, service. Prabhupada does emphasize in that way. And yeah, that's a key, that whatever our desire, we pray to Krishna. Krishna says, Chatur vida bhajante mam jana sukritin arjuna arto jigasar archati gana japardar shiva. Krishna says, four main categories of people approach me. One is those in distress, that they or a family member are in bad health, so they approach me. Others approach me for money. Others approach me because they're just curious. And Krishna says, they are all auspicious, magnanimous souls. It's all worthy. It's all praiseworthy. They're all great souls. And the greatest, purest, most saintly souls are those who approach me and serve me, wanting nothing in return, but whatever our desire. And then, of course, as we advance, even we pray for good health, and then more and more we pray for good health so that I can use this body in Srila Prabhupada's service, as our consciousness gets cleansed.
Thank you, Anandini, for sharing. I appreciate it. I think it's one of the verses that we read together in our reading club. And yes, I never thought of health as also emotional health.
Emotional health and mental health.
Thank you, Anandini and Ladini. Bhakti Keith.
So I have this prepared. So I'm going to relate it to the verse in the sense that not to oppress my good qualities and to share them. And the material exhausted, I guess, will be without attachment to the results of what I want to share. And it's connected to last week when during the Ram Navami class, when you had asked about comparing Ram and Sita to Grihastha and stuff. And then you had opened up for anybody to answer. And I found that I kind of like shunned away from it out of like weakness, fear, afraid that I was going to be trying to impress people, stuff like that. So I was just wondering if I could just do that now.
Could you speak from your heart without reading?
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least I prepared my mind.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and this is just from my. I didn't do any extra research. It's just from my interpretation or whatever. So, say first thing to focus on is there's like the dharmic aspect, and then there's the spiritual aspect of what the story is trying to say, right? So I think the first thing to address is when the two people are coming together, So Ram and Sita, they did that through the Sambatar. They have like a competition.
Swayamvar. Yeah, the competition.
Yeah, they have a competition. They come together and fight and whatever, and to prove themselves. But really, it's just a systematic approach. That it's conscious. It's not just
what's the essence of what you want to share?
The essence. That it's not just about coming together over emotional attractions and stuff like that, at least at first.
Right.
That once the decision is made, then those things happen naturally. And I wanted to quote this Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami saying that before attachment sets in, astrology should be done. So that to me is just, you're clear where I'm at, where I'm going, what my desires are in life. And then once a solid decision is made, it's like buying a house, you know, then those emotions can come in there and stuff like that. And otherwise, I've noticed that it can make things very complicated. And once the attachment sets in, then the lust starts playing with your head and get into like emotional manipulation to try to make things work. And then there was this other quote. I'll make it concise. So there's this other quote that I read in this history of the Hare Krishna movement. You got me to read there a couple of years ago. I read this one quote in there. Prabhupada says that if women are not fixed in marriage, then every day is a new friend. So it just, emotions are there, and they're wanting to kind of like have a connection and be protected and whatever. But the emotions kind of like are so fluid that they just start reaching out for wherever, you know. And I think the important part of these things is it's not really a Prabhupada says certain things like this, especially some of the stuff with women is quite harsh, you know. And I know that there's a lot of issues with that. And I think that's, like, for example, with this one, it's not necessarily like an insult or to belittle anybody. He's talking about material nature and what situations that we're dealing with. And so, for example,
what's the essence of what you want us to understand?
That it's not so much about these the really harsh comments and stuff like that. It's very clear. I think the harsh comments and stuff like that, they're like material designation. So when people come together,
harsh comments, it's like the idea, material nature is harsh. For example, there's the verse, second canto, Svavid varaho stra karer. So that verse talks about, it says, men who are like pigs, dogs, camels, and asses, never praise those who are, men who are like pigs, dogs, camels, and asses, never, or they're absorbed in praising those who never devote themselves to Krishna. And in the purport, Prabhupada specifically talks about male psychology that is asinine, male psychology that is piggish, male psychology that is doggish. Okay, so I think this is sexism, because I know women who are asinine too. I object. Anyhow, so so the idea is, all material psychophysical natures have their defects, and the different, whether we're in a body called, human male or human female, there's each type of body has its advantages and disadvantages for achieving the ultimate goal of life. And so it's important that we cultivate understanding that we're not the car, or we're not the computer. A more appropriate analogy would be, there's the computer, like hardware and software. Software is the subtle material body, and then there's the hardware. So we're not the hardware, we're not the software. At the same time, it's important to know the computer, to know the car. I'm not this 4-door sedan, I'm not this 18-wheel truck, I'm not this motorcycle. At the same time, I want to know how to drive the motorcycle. I want to know how to drive the truck. I want to know how to I want to know how the brakes work in this particular vehicle. Because in the name of, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm spirit, soul. Okay, all right, well then we can just be crashing all over the place. So it's important to, whatever type of body or it's important to know our psychophysical nature and how to drive the car to help us on our journey. And that journey means increasingly realizing I'm not the car.
Yeah. So that's is it okay? I'll wrap up what I was going to say quick. Yeah. So that's what I was wanting to also balance it out in such a way. Yeah, to point out that it's the males and the females both have negative qualities and good qualities that can be used in spiritual realization, devotional service, and that's what the when they come together, we understand these propensities that we have, and then we learn how to connect deeper on the spiritual level. That not to want to connect with each other in that way, and it's like that's what I think. Really, Prabhupada says these things really harshly because it's like encouragement to not want to associate in that way and to connect spiritually. And then I'll just wrap it up quickly. Yeah, so that's the spiritual purification, right? Learning how to not relate to each other materially and encourage to connect on the spiritual way. And then as far as the last little bit of it that I was thinking, like with Ram and Sita, like for example, at the last little bit, he sends her to the forest, right? They're there to establish religious principles and stuff like that. And it's to be understood as being quite harsh and inconsiderate, and he's supposed to be a man and protector and all these things. And as far as the specific reason why that happened like that in the story, I don't know. But the one thing that I was thinking after that is nice is that they're both God. You know, that's Radha Krishna. That their connection is eternal, and all of those changes and separations and disturbances didn't affect their love and attachment for each other, even in the very slightest, not even one bit. So when he sent her to the forest, he was fully loving and caring and attentive for her, and that loving bond, right? Protection. And same when she went to the forest and did all that stuff and went back into the earth, her love and devotion for him was never hindered in the slightest. Yeah. So I think that's like an underlying, I don't really have that much realization of it, but I can at least connect the dots on it. I think it's pretty nice.
Thanks for your sharing, Bhakti Keith.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Any other sharing? Questions, comments, realizations?
I have a comment. Hare Krishna. I was thinking about how in Queen Kunti's prayer she says you're like only the materially exhausted can approach you. And I was thinking how
Approach you with feeling.
yes, can approach you with feeling. Yeah. Well, I don't know how this is going to kind of come out. It's kind of jumbled in my head, but I was thinking how like over the past 12 years, I became like materially exhausted from relationships, the area of relationships. And that led me to just surrender relationships for 2 years. And then I'm also looking and like how that gave me like more feeling for Krishna, more feeling for wanting to just make Krishna the beloved that I have in the center of my mind, and Srila Prabhupada. And then also I'm looking at how like for a woman to be settled in her mind, it's best that she's married. And it's just, I don't know what to say about that, but it's just, it almost seems like contradictory or something. It's like all of the exhaustion from my material relationships brought me closer to Krishna, but then at the same time, for me to like be settled in my mind, also I need to be married eventually. But then that's going to end up being materially exhausting, 99.9% chance over time, and that will bring me closer to Krishna. So I don't know, it just I don't know, it just seems like some interesting balance between like having a settled mind by like having one person that I'm devoted to, but then also how that, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but maybe you understand me.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thanks. Well, if that one person that you or any woman or man is fixed on is Krishna, then there's no reason to enter into marriage unless it's clear that's one service. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yashastra vinmuchija vartadekamakamarta. Nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukamna pramgatim. And so Krishna talks about following the regulations of Shastra, and if one doesn't, then one will not be happy or peaceful. One won't progress towards the supreme destination. And so, so the idea, yeah, if one's absorbed in transcendence, but the idea is like marriage is like it's a regulative principle. It's a regulative principle to help one fix their mind. Okay, just this one person, to help one fix their mind. And yeah, and then within the structure of marriage, there's the commitment, and then staying within that ground rule, just like, you know, the ground rule of commitment in the courses is especially for those times you want to leave, right? Kind of like if, okay, now this marriage for the next 60 years, it's going to be unending heavenly bliss. There would be no reason you need to commit to it. You wouldn't need commitment. I'm here. Right? No, but it's going to be misery. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be frustration. There's going to be well, some of you have heard me quote, it was the wife of Billy Graham in the United States, like one of the big preachers of the 20th century, Christian preacher, was Billy Graham. So there was an interview with his wife, Mrs. Billy Graham, and they asked Mrs. Billy Graham, have you ever thought about divorcing your husband? And she replied, divorce? No. Murder, yes, but divorce, no. She was a woman of principle. Okay, so yeah, but the idea of like, let's take the seminar, the commitment. So the idea is like, by that commitment that, no, I'm not leaving, as uncomfortable, as painful as it gets, then there's so much purification and growth there. So that's the idea by this commitment to the marriage, which is especially for those times when we want to leave. And then that's the idea. Then after you know, some time period, then they're just like, okay, whether it's marriage or any aspect of the pain of material existence, if I want to simplify it, and it's not an oversimplification, the goal is to get like, yeah, I don't want to come back here. Let me fully give myself with feeling to Krishna, to Govinda. That's what when we experience evil in the world, or pandemics, or evil in ourselves, evil in others, and we experience frustration and miseries from the mind and misery. The whole idea is to, yeah, let me with feeling call out. So the idea is, yeah, material sex life, it's gonna, there's pleasure, and it's going to be the source of misery and suffering. And so if we regulate it within the marriage institution, then through that regulation, through that discipline, because the mind wants to enjoy with this one, enjoy with that one, and then there's just like without that commitment, then there's no progress. Then just the mind's going here and there. And then with the commitment, then, okay, I did it. 25 years, finished, okay, and like that, and then maybe the husband and wife choose to stay together or choose to serve separately, dependent. So sure, if the one person you're focused on is Krishna, and that's true, then there's no reason for marriage. But marriage is a safety net, because if you're not completely absorbed in Krishna, then the tendency to go from one possible partner and mate to another, each day a different friend, or each year, every 6 months. And then that's disturbing for the mind, and we never make advancement. So marriage is like a safety, it's like a safety net. And we say, well, I'm so deep in Krishna consciousness, I don't need that safety net. If someone's on that platform, okay, but that's rare in this world. That takes, like, if someone's is really transcendental to sex desire,
300 lives.
Yeah, it can take a while. So yeah, so the marriage institution is a safety net, just like the ground rules of the seminar. And without that, then there's also misery and suffering, but there's no progress. There's no progress because we don't have the commitment to stay in the seminar room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for using the seminar analogy. It makes so much sense. Yeah. And can you, like, I haven't read, I'm beginning to read about Queen Kunti and these prayers. Where is it written that, like, I'm wanting to learn about her, like, is it written about her marriage? Is there writings about her marriage, like her getting married and things like that?
Okay. In Prabhupada, I mean, it's there in Prabhupada's writings a little bit about her and Pandu, and it's quite a romantic story, with her and Pandu, and it was also a Svayamvar. That's described in the Mahabharata, and Prabhupada mentions it in some purports and some lectures.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much part of the story and plot directly given in Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Not so much there. In the Bhagavatam, we got like this 8th chapter of the first canto, and that there's a lot in the first canto about Queen Kunti and her relations with her sons, more kind of after Pandu died. After he died. So Pandu and Kunti coming together, that's Mahabharata.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get pieces of the marriage story in Prabhupada's books.
Okay, thank you. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
I really appreciate the, just like Brielle said, the connection between that you're making between marriage and the advanced course. Especially for me, what really stood out was because there are going to be really uncomfortable times when you're going to want to leave, but you made a commitment and you choose to stay, and that really. And from that, there's purification, and that really speaks to me in my experience, in my own marriage. So I really appreciate that. And I've heard from other women, because when that started happening for me in my marriage, I was like, is this supposed to happen? Does this mean that I'm not supposed to be married to this person? Like, I started having all these questions, but then I reached out to other women who are married, and I found that this happens in marriage, like that this isn't unique to my marriage, and that really helped me to just be okay with the process, and like just be like, okay, this is the process, this is part of the process of marriage, and that really helped me to surrender to the process more.
To accept the context and surrender to your agreement to the ground rules, and that's been powerful for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Rebecca. Kim. I saw Kim had her hand up.
I wasn't sure I was unmuted. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the devotee from Prague that I got to meet a few months back, the lady who commented earlier. I forget her name. What is her name?
Which lady?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm breaking up. Anyway, her comment earlier just made me think about, you know, we all.
You're talking about Helena Pakarova, Ladini
Yeah.
Shak. Yeah,
Yes.
All right, great. Lady from Prague.
Yeah. So she just made me think how we all at times will beat ourselves up and think we're not doing enough, and we're probably right. I'm sure that we could be doing more, but I just made me think about how grateful I was when I found Krishna consciousness, because I was raised in a religion where salvation was from works. You know, you only got saved because of what you did. And you had the one chance in this life to get it right and work hard, and then God will save you, or otherwise you're done. And when I found Krishna consciousness, which made so much more sense, and I learned things like, you know, there's no loss on this path. And, you know, well, that simple thought. And even if I died today, there's no loss from where I've gotten, at least that. And I lost my train of thought, but hold on one second. But yeah, so I was very grateful for that in Krishna consciousness. And I just know that there's levels to the relationship, and that, you know, that's another thing I was never taught. It was like all or nothing. But now I know there's levels, and I'm always going to hope for and know that I will get to higher levels through, you know, Krishna's help. But that it's good that I'm growing. I don't know. Those are the thoughts that came up in me when I heard her comment, and I just wanted to say that. And that's it.
Thank you, Kim. I'm inspired by your sharing. Yeah. That you appreciate the nuance, the subtlety, the gradation. It's not you do this many works and you go to heaven, otherwise you burn in hell forever. And I'm exaggerating, but I'm not exaggerating. There are some so-called religions it's very childish. And so this is like, there's like mature gradations, there's varieties of relationship, there's personal exchange. So I'm moved by your gratitude for having found Krishna consciousness, or Krishna consciousness found you. Thanks for sharing, Kim. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Ramachandra.
I just wanted to comment on the health thing. That like when I started reading Prabhupada's letters, I thought Prabhupada is just like sort of official, like hope that meets you in the good health. Like if some of you read Prabhupada's letter, Prabhupada always signs it like your ever well-wisher, and before that he wishes for everyone's good health.
Yeah, good health. Yeah.
But the more I interacted, especially like with the devotees from like the early days, and recently actually Nalini Kanta Prabhu, he like pointed out to me, and I think Mother Malini, she was there too, that Prabhupada was always so intimately concerned with devotees' bare necessities, including health, physical health, mental health, emotional health. Like he went out of his comfort zone to arrange marriages, which a sannyasi, he should not even like think about these things. And he was criticized so heavily by his godfathers for assisting in like arranging marriages and things like that. So it's really like I experienced how Prabhupada he's really concerned with all the aspects of our life, like either that's health or spiritual life that's interrelated. And I made even a little compilation about like Prabhupada's health advices. So if anyone is interested, I can share it with this part of my drive with you. You can benefit from that too. It's really nice.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Hare Krishna. I'm reminded, you know, from 1998 to 2004, I served as director for the well, we call it the Association for Protection of Children. It was commonly known as the ISKCON International Office of Child Protection. And so I talked to a lot of children then, including, well, of course, I would talk, yeah, I mean, some of them were well into their 40s when I would speak to them. But I remember some, like, they were maybe 11, 12 years old, like in Vrindavan when Prabhupada was like physically present. It's like they have memories. I mean, some of them, you know, were 2 years old. What's that?
New Vrindavan?
Vrindavan, also New Vrindavan.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes, I mean, some of them were 2 years old and they got a cookie from Prabhupada and, you know, like that. But some of them were, you know, they like have pretty clear memories. And there's sometimes we'll hear criticism that, oh, you know, neglect of the children, this and that. And there was terrible maltreatment of the children, but not from Prabhupada. And like, I remember one youth who's now, I mean, he's probably about 50 years old or so, but yeah, and he would, no, he'd be 55 years old. Raghunath, and he was like maybe 14, 15 in Vrindavan. And he would say when, like, the Prabhupada would be walking around, it'd be like a tour, and he would see a child and he would be like, why doesn't that child have a sweater? Where's this child's socks? He would be so attentive to the physical, so attentive to the physical well-being and the health. It was not secondary.
There are a series of lectures in LA about the Ishopanishad, and devotees are copying them, and Prabhupada is chastising the management why they're copying. There's not they're missing something.
Yeah. Queen Kunti ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.